Today, we are going to talk about a very triggering matter, child abuse. Child maltreatment is the abuse and neglect that occurs to children under 18 years of age. It includes all types of physical or emotional ill treatment, sexual abuse, neglect, negligence, and commercial or other exploitation which results in actual or potential harm to the child's health, survival, development, or dignity in the context of a relationship of responsibility, trust, or power. Child maltreatment is a global problem with serious lifelong consequences. In spite of recent national surveys in several low and middle income countries, data from many countries are still lacking. Child maltreatment is complex and difficult to study. Current estimates vary widely depending on the country and the method of research used. Estimates depend on the definitions of child maltreatment used, the type of child maltreatment studied, the coverage and quality of official statistics, the coverage and quality of surveys that request self-reports from victims, parents, or caregivers. Nonetheless, international studies reveal that nearly 3 in 4 children aged 2 to 4 years regularly suffer physical punishment or psychological violence at the hands of parents and caregivers, and 1 in 5 women and 1 in 13 men report having been sexually abused as a child. Every year, there are an estimated 40 to 150 homicide deaths in children under 18 years of age, some of which are likely due to child maltreatment. This number almost certainly underestimates the true extent of the problem, since a significant proportion of deaths due to child maltreatment are incorrectly attributed to falls, burns, drowning, and other cases. In armed conflict and refugee settings, girls are particularly vulnerable to sexual violence, exploitation, and abuse by combatants, security forces, members of their communities, aid workers, and others. Child maltreatment has often severe short and long-term physical, sexual, and mental health consequences. These include injuries, including head injuries and severe disability, in particular in young children, post-traumatic stress, anxiety, depression, and sexually transmitted infections, including HIV. Adolescent girls may face additional health issues, including gynecological disorders and unwanted pregnancy. Child maltreatment can affect cognitive and academic performance and is strongly associated with alcohol and drug abuse and smoking. Key risk factors for non-communicable diseases such as cardiovascular diseases and cancer. Maltreatment causes stress that is associated with disruption in early brain development. Extreme stress can impair the development of the nervous and immune systems. Consequently, as adults, maltreated children are at increased risk of behavioral, physical, and mental health problems such as perpetrating or being a victim of violence, depression, smoking, obesity, high-risk sexual behaviors, unintended pregnancy, alcohol, and drug misuse. Violence against children is also a contributor to inequalities in education. Children who experienced any form of violence in childhood have a 13% greater likelihood of not graduating from school. Beyond the health, social, and educational consequences of child maltreatment, there is an economic impact including costs of hospitalization, mental health treatment, child welfare, and longer-term health costs. Several risk factors for child maltreatment have been identified. Not all risk factors are present in all social and cultural contexts, and the list here provides an overview when attempting to understand the causes of child maltreatment. Child. It is important to emphasize that children are the victims and are never to blame for maltreatment. Characteristics of an individual child that may increase the likelihood of being maltreated include being either under 4 years old or an adolescent, being unwanted or failing to fulfill the expectations of parents, having special needs, crying persistently, or having abnormal physical features, having an intellectual disability or neurological disorder, identifying or as being identified as lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender. Parent or caregiver. Characteristics of a parent or caregiver that may increase the risk of child maltreatment include difficulty bonding with a newborn, not nurturing the child, having been maltreated themselves as a child, lacking awareness of child development or having unrealistic expectations, misusing alcohol or drugs including during pregnancy, having low self-esteem, suffering from poor impulse control, having a mental or neurological disorder, being involved in criminal activity, experiencing financial difficulties. Relationship. Characteristics of the relationships within families or among intimate partners, friends, and peers that may increase the risk of child maltreatment include family breakdown or violence between other family members, being isolated in the community or lacking a support network, a breakdown of support in child rearing from the extended family. Community and societal factors. Characteristics of communities and societies that may increase the risk of child maltreatment include gender and social inequality, lack of adequate housing or services to support families and institutions, high levels of unemployment or poverty, the easy availability of alcohol and drugs, inadequate policies and programs to prevent child maltreatment, child pornography, child prostitution, and child labor, social and cultural norms that promote or glorify violence towards others, support the use of corporal punishment, demand rigid gender roles, or diminish the status of the child in parent-child relationships. Social, economic, health, and education policies that lead to poor living standards or to socio-economic inequality or instability. Prevention. Preventing and responding to child maltreatment requires a multisectoral approach. The earlier such interventions occur in children's lives, the greater the benefits to the child and to society. It is important to remember that children are innocent and pure and that they need to be protected at all costs. After all, children are the pillars of the future. Shouldn't they be raised with love and care to ensure that they too will be able to give the same to the world? It is every adult's job to make sure that all children are raised surrounded by love, acceptance instead of abuse and violence. No child should ever experience the feeling of terror and fear. Let's stay united in raising our children right and safe from any harm. Who else if not our children will shape the future? And who else if not adults will make sure to eradicate abuse once and for all?